Constantine, a Hellblazer podcast.
Hey there, everybody. Matt here, and I just want to let you know before we get into the podcast that my co-host Hoku has written a book. It is a short story horror collection, and I narrated the audiobook. So if you want some terrifying tales for this spooky season, definitely go check that out. It is available physically and digitally on Amazon, and if you want the audiobook, it is available on Audible and Spotify and pretty much wherever else you can get audiobooks. So if that interests you, I'll put the links down in the description of this podcast. But without further ado, let's get into Hell Talk. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Hell Talk. I am here with Hoku as always.
Hello.
And today we are covering Hellblazer issues 91 to 100.
The big 100.
Exactly. I'm very excited. Finally, a third of the way through this series. And this was quite a bit of issues. This was I would say this is the first real Paul Jenkins story with John in England. I mean, obviously it is because he was in Australia before, but it just feels like him. Okay, we went to Australia, now we're back in England. Bam, here's all the stuff, and I really like that. Did you like the feel of that? The whole way he introduced this story arc and everything.
Oh yeah, I thought it was great, coming off of sort of a world tour to come back to his home turf and just get straight into it, getting to meet some new friends, getting to have him feel like he's settling in again. I my favorite thing is always right at those moments when John is things are chill, maybe I could be happy, and then the shit hits the fan. It's glorious. You love to see it, you feel sorry for him, but you also love to see him, and that's why we're here.
You feel sorry, but then also you're well, he kind of deserves it sometimes, or he kind of made it happen sometimes. So
yeah. Oh, and just the fact that it brings back some really good things that I'd completely forgotten about.
Yes. So this is where we get Jenkins. I'm gonna call it paying respects, but also making his own version of stuff. He's going back to fear machine things. He's going back to stuff that happened with the demon blood and everything that happened in the Ennis story arc with Ellie and the First of the Fallen and stuff. He does a great job at tying his run to those runs while being respectful of what happened in those runs, but changing it. Those happened and now this is happening. He does a good job of that.
Yeah, I love that he picked up the pieces of what had come before. He was that's a cool idea. That's a cool idea. That's a cool character, and just sort of rolled them up into his own new story, which, like you said, pays homage, but also is just hey, I took these things you guys kind of created and ran with it, and just went in a completely different direction. That was awesome.
Yeah. He does a good job at kind of subverting your expectations about what's going to happen in this story and whatnot too, which is nice because it's hard to follow writers like Delano and Ennis. And especially the Ennis run is considered everybody loved that run. And I mean, generally, I'm not everybody, but it has its detractors for sure. But as far as I knew for a long time, pretty much everybody was the Ennis run is fantastic. So to follow that with such a strong intro, the Australia thing was kind of a little intermediary story arc. And then it's now we're back in England, bam, right away. There's nothing no beat skip, nothing dropped. And there's no oh, we're going to meander for a couple issues and then get to the main story. He's no, check this shit out. Let's hit you with the hardest story there is. So, and with that, the first issue, issue 91 is kind of it's basically an introduction issue to Rich and his family, which is John's friends, right? We didn't know about these friends because I think this is a trope of every new writer with John, but every new writer introduces a new friend set that he had at some time, and we've never heard of before.
Well, of course. I mean, his friends keep dying, so it's not like you can be like, "Oh, my friend. Oh no, wait, shit, that guy's dead. Oh wait, what about? Oh no, that person's like gone off, to another country or whatever." So it makes sense that they have to, introduce to us, but reintroduce to John these people that were a part of his life at some point, and just happen to fall back in to being around him again. It works, and if it's a trope that is necessary because these people keep dying off, like, yeah, I'm all for it. Especially if they come up with a really good way to make them relevant, not only in his past but to his present.
Yeah, yeah. And like I think the first story arc or the first issue of 91, that little story is a good introduction to Rich and his family, who's like it's like, "Oh, Johnny, I can't believe it. You're here." And then they invite him on a very Fear Machine ish kind of protest against government messing with like ley line kind of stuff. And then but it also incorporates his new like Dreamtime powers, which is fun. That like sets it apart. What you? So I mean, obviously, we all, if you go back to the original issue or the original episodes of Hell Talk where we talk about Fear Machine, that story arc from Jamie Delano, it's not our favorite. But what did you feel?
No.
Having the vibes come back at least.
To be honest, I honestly wasn't even thinking of Fear Machine when this came up until you mentioned it. I was like, oh yeah, that was a big part of Fear Machine, wasn't it? Like I said, I've kind of just pushed that whole storyline off to the side. And aside from the characters, I've sort of just put that away as like, well, that was nice, but we don't need to think about that anymore. So I had no inkling of this being like, oh, this reminds me of. I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool. Protest. Yeah, a lot of his friends are into that sort of thing. I was more thinking like back to like the riots that were happening in the storyline where the city was going up in flames because of the racial craziness going on.
Oh yeah, there's that. Well, because there was also protesting in the Fear Machine story arc, like the travelers were going to sites and protesting and stuff. So that's why I was like, oh, it's like that. But yeah, I guess you're right. Like the protesting that was happening in the Garth Ennis run at the end is similar too.
But it is more similar to Fear Machine now that you mentioned it. I had just completely forgotten about that part at all.
Yeah. Well, like the reason why I saw it is just immediately I was like, oh, like they're going to a protest about this land thing, and there was stones and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is like Fear Machine. Like literally, he's recalling Fear Machine here. Um, and so I thought that was fun, even and like because he put it into context of not Fear Machine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's totally me. I just did not pick up on that at all. But like as soon as ley lines came into it, I should have. It should have at least sparked a memory of something. But it just went right past me.
It might be because the first time I ever heard about ley lines was in Fear Machine. So like the concept of that is very tied to Fear Machine for me. So
Oh, see,
that
I
might be it.
remember it from Ghostbusters.
Ah, okay.
So it doesn't really like trigger a connection as far as like to Fear Machine specifically. I remember it more from being like a minor thing in Ghostbusters when they were talking about you know, the map and everything of where the ghosts were coming from and stuff.
I guess
So.
we never watched Ghostbusters when I was a kid, so
No.
um, gotta love that Christian household. But but anyway, but in the story we get like it's weird because it starts off like in the past in like the 1400s because we're learning about some battle that happened in the same ground that they're protesting in modern day, and then we get like there's like three stories going on. There's the stuff from the old days, like the 1700s or whatever, and then there's stuff from John present, and then there's stuff that happened when John was a kid with Rich and his friend Deanie, who we learn about, who might be special. I'm not sure if he's supposed to be special or not. It seems like he is, like on some level.
It was probably a way to say that he is, yeah, like you said, special without giving it a specific terminology.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. He's just like kind of like a fun-loving kid who's carefree and maybe doesn't pick up on social cues very well. So,
Yeah.
like maybe he didn't want to name it or whatever, or give it like a defined diagnosis or something. So, but yeah, but I liked it. I thought it was like a fun interaction, learning about John when he was younger with Rich. But I do find it a horribly tragic story because
Oh, absolutely. It's
Deanie
so
just like
sad.
takes drugs and goes off in the woods and dies. It's like Jesus.
Yeah, that was really messed up. Especially when his spirit's apparently been wandering for what was it, like 15 years, 20 years?
Hmm.
And just on this bike, like constantly being chased by like old timey soldiers and stuff is like that's terrifying for him.
Yeah, because they think he's a witch.
Yeah, which I also thought was hilarious. But also that's so sad and also like poor guy stuck in this like crazy spirit land.
I guess it's nice because John gets to bring him over, bring his soul
Yeah.
over, and put him to rest.
So it's sweet. It has a nice touch. And it's so funny, the cover immediately makes me think of ET. So
Oh, I mean, it was supposed to. I'm sure.
yeah.
I like that cover because John is like barely hanging off the back of the bike, and he looks all scared and stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, he rarely looks perturbed, and he looks quite perturbed in that cover.
Yeah, so that issue is kind of like just a fun setup to introduce us to Rich and his family and John like getting reacquainted with them, and then bam, we're in the critical mass storyline, which is I think this is like the storyline that really defines this run for me, the Jenkins run. It's like it's the most like hard the most affecting of John, I think, in his whole run, because it has over, the effects of it are very long lasting through his 40 issues. So it like it really sets the tone well, and like I like it when writers go back to things they set up at the beginning, like Ennis would do that. Uh, Even though his sometimes felt a little less planned, but I feel like the way that Jenkins writes is like, oh, I'm gonna set the storyline up, and then I have all these other storylines in my head that I'm gonna do, and it's gonna end like this, and there might be some stuff I make up in the middle that are like random issues or whatever, and I'll create those later on, like I'll come up with those stories. But for the most part, a lot of it feels like it was planned, especially by the end of the whole run. So I really like Critical Mass as like a good jumping on point to his run, and like um what did you think of like this storyline in general? Like, did you think it was strong, or did you think it could have been better?
Oh, I think it's like definitely up there with like the whole Golden Boy scenario with uh that original storyline that I mean even
In Jamie Delano's run?
yeah, exactly. Like I think it totally matches the level that each creator set for themselves of like this is where we really fuck with John. Like they each had their sort of like big moment where there's a life changing, either it's spiritual, physical, something alters John in a way that changes him, which either allows for the next person to take that and run with it or to shift it around themselves. But there's always some sort of like deep, almost soul crushing or breaking or reviving a way to ultimately change John in some way. And I thought this was done really well because not only did he bring it about in a way that was new, but he managed to take aspects from almost every other storyline and put that in as well. So it's masterfully done, man. I mean, it's like such a good story, and I also think it was done in a really good amount of time. Like it didn't feel too long, it didn't feel too rushed. Like the pacing was really good. The each cliffhanger like felt like a oh man, I need to know what happens next. And yeah, it was really great. I thought it was definitely one of the best stories so far.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. I think it's up there with like Dangerous Habits, where John gets cancer, and then
Yeah.
some of the best Jamie Delano storylines. I think it should be considered like top five or something, of this run or of the issues we've read so far.
Oh, totally.
Um, but yeah, so so one of the introductions of this storyline is the demon boar, who's the main villain. What'd you think about him? I really had a fun time voicing him because he was like this really creepy old man demon.
Yeah.
And like, what'd you think about him as a villain?
I I don't know. To me, he felt like he worked. He definitely worked as a character to get the ball rolling. Um, I don't know. Like he wasn't super special to me, I guess, as a character. He felt like he was just put there to just do this thing, like almost like you could have made any sort of character to fit the role that he had to play, and it would be the exact same story. So as a character, I don't think he's particularly special, but I do like that, like what he does in his role. I love that it's like, oh yeah, I've actually secretly or not so secretly had a crush on the first, for a millennia, and this is my big moment to sort of like show him, like prove my love in this super awesome plan that I've concocted. So, like as a character himself, I don't really like I love the way you voiced him, by the way. That was great.
Thank
Every
you.
time, there was going to be his lines, I was just like, this totally just sounds like some old dude. So, just the fact that you were able to do a voice like that, you know how much I love your voices. Um but him as a character, not so much like special or intriguing, really, to me.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think his character is meant to actually be a misdirect for the big like reveal, which is that the first of the fallen isn't dead. Like that is we since the Garth Ennis run, we've just assumed the first of the fallen died at the end of that, and like John won. But it turns out he just became human and is living in Greece as a fisherman now. And uh so Boor is kind of like the misdirect of like, oh, here's the new big bad, and then it turns out he's like, no, I love the first of the fallen, and that's why I'm doing this, and and then he goes to visit him, and we find out, oh no, the first of the fallen is still alive. So I think that's why he's not the best character or whatever, but he's got a good like, um, he he seems formidable at first, at least, because he's possessing children. He's like this creepy fucking child, like enslaver in hell, and then like, but then it turns out like, oh, he's not like the big bad. The first of the fallen is like part of this plan as well. Um, but it is interesting because he does have to like make the plan and then follow through with it, because the first of the fallen is mortal still, so he can't really do anything. He's got to depend on Boor, who, from what the first of the fallen acts like towards him, is a fuck up or of some kind. Like uh he's not the best demon to take on John Constantine, is what I would say. um
I thought it was sort of funny that right off the bat, the first is just like, just don't underestimate him. It's like, obviously I did, and look where I am. Like, whatever you do, be smart about this. Not that I actually think you could go through with this or whatever, but if you're gonna try it, like do not miss a beat. He's super crafty. You got to make sure you got your plan like locked on all sides. And he's just like, oh yeah, I got this. I'm the best. I'm the greatest.
don't worry, I have it all figured out.
Yeah.
You like immediately underestimate Sean. So,
Yeah.
which is
Although it
easy to
did
do.
seem for a moment like he did actually had him. Like even John was like, "You had me there for like a smidge of a second." He even doubted. He was like, "I don't know if I can do this, go through with this, like figure this out." So I do give more credit for making John doubt himself when even the first, it seems like, didn't always give him like that sort of pause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that um even if Boor did like overestimate him, John hit one of his like powers, we'll call it. But like, the one thing about John is that he will go the distance, like no matter what. Like, he does not leave anything in the gas tank. So if he's like, I'm going to die, or someone I care about's going to die, um, he will just do whatever needs to be done to make that not happen, even if it might cause consequences later on. He'll deal with that as it happens, but he's very much like a pragmatic person. Like, I'm right here right now, this is the problem, let me fix that problem, even if it causes further problems. We'll figure those out as they come. and so like, I think that's the underestimating that Bohr does here, is um he doesn't realize the depths that John will go to win. Like, And
in that moment. Yeah,
yeah,
he
in
is
that
very
moment.
much a
Yeah.
person of like, in the moment, I am going to fix this and deal with the consequences at a later date. Like, that's for future John to worry about. Me, John, right now, is I don't want to be in this situation. I need to get out of it, which is both admirable and also like kind of insane.
Yes. Yeah, it definitely does not help in certain circumstances, but it definitely makes him hard to pin down if you're a bad guy. You're like, I mean, I didn't think he would do that, but apparently he did,
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing where it's like, I'm going to cut off my arm because you've pinned it in this battle and you think you've won. Well, I'm going to cut off my arm and stab you with the bone because like, like,
Yeah.
like I'm willing to sacrifice my arm and you didn't think I would, that kind of thing. It's like, he's crazy like that. You never know what he'll do when he's cornered.
I may bleed to death, but that's future John's problem. Right now, I am going to kill you with my own arm, and then that problem will be dealt with, and then I will figure out what happens after that.
Exactly, yeah. And I like that about John. And it's kind of like really, I mean, it's always been there, but I feel like this storyline kind of really shows it because he does have to pay for these consequences later. And so or he does have to pay the consequences later. Like um these decisions while fixing the issue immediately lead to bigger problems that lead to cooler storylines later on. So
I would imagine so because the what he does is insane.
I really like that because like the idea that he splits himself into like the good John and the bad John, he takes all the demon blood out of him, he takes all the bad stuff he's ever done out of him, and puts it in another being, and so that kind of like takes that like fixes the issue of like, oh, I don't have demon blood in me, so like I'm not like there's no like weird powers I have to deal with that, if someone were to think about it like why, I mean, John can heal really fast, why does he care about this or that? Like it takes that out of the equation. It takes out or like it calls back to like maybe the golden child a little bit, like is John now, did he take out like his twin, or did he take himself out and now he's more like the golden child twin, or something.
Oh, that's a good
Um,
thought. I hadn't thought of that.
yeah, like there's some things that it just brings into question that aren't really addressed necessarily, but it's like they're paralleling some things that have happened in the past. And some cool ideas, like he could have gone certain directions on things, but I think he had like a point to most of it. So, um, like, or he had like a path he wanted to go with it. So, and I think that's shown by how much he sets up because like he sets up characters like Jack of the Green and
Yeah,
Abaton,
that was an interesting character.
Yeah, I mean, okay. We've also read Swamp Thing and stuff. Like as of now, the only time that another character from the Green has been introduced that I know of was Lady Jane in the Nancy Collins run, and then of course the
Yeah.
Parliament. But the Parliament's like stuck in the Amazon. So I don't know, if I haven't read enough Vertigo stuff to know if this is like a unique thing or if this was kind of going on in other titles, because I know Black Orchid is a title that like that character is tied to the Green as well in some way, but I haven't read their the run for that. So I don't know if they kind of established this idea and Jenkins just ran with it. Um, but yeah, the idea of Jack of the Green is interesting, and Abaton specifically. What do you think about that concept?
About Abaton?
About Abaton and about like Jack of the Green as like a part of the Green in general, like
I kind of liked that he was like regionally specific, kind of Swamp Thing goes all over the world, but is also kind of like centralized in Louisiana and in the States for the most part. And so Jack is sort of like the UK version of that, which I think is pretty cool to have their own version of a character that's similar but distinct from Swamp Thing. And I don't think he has the same powers, obviously, as Swamp Thing. He's more just sort of like maybe like a lesser, I guess, like you would say like a lesser deity or something. He's a little bit lower on the totem
he's a
pole.
demi he's a demi elemental or something.
Something like that. It seems like that. So, I thought it was kind of cool to bring in this new element to the story. Maybe they needed some sort of like connection to Abaton, and this was a way to. What I think it also brings in a bit of like English folklore too, because the Green Man is like a big part of their folklore. So I love that they used that as sort of like, I'm assuming they used that as an inspiration for this character. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked it too. I at first I was like, "What?" Because I'm like super partial to Swamp Thing and that lore, so I'm like, "What is this nonsense?"
Oh, of course. I know you were just like, you don't fuck with my Swamp Thing. But
Exactly.
thankfully he's just like he would be like, Swamp Thing's like foot soldier or something, or like a messenger. He's a little dude. He's not in any way a threat.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, okay, I'll go along with this, I guess. And I think like there are some parts of the Jenkins run that when I initially read them kind of rubbed me wrong. Jack of the Green was one of them, and then so was the First of the Fallen returning so quickly.
Oh yeah. That was kind of unexpected.
Yeah, like I felt like when all of a sudden it's like the First of the Fallen's alive, it felt like it had been 2 issues since the Garth Ennis run ended.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what? Like he's undoing all this stuff. But by the time I got to the end of the storyline, I felt much better about it. It was just like the initial reading of it, I'm like, what the fuck? No. You just like undid all the stuff that Garth Ennis did, but that's not what he's doing. So I felt better once, I got to that point towards the end of that story arc where I'm like, okay, he's doing his own thing and he's kind of paying respects to the Garth Ennis run instead of just ignoring it or invalidating everything that happens.
I kind of like that, and it sort of left it open in that even like when he was what we thought when he was dying, he's like, "What's going to happen to me?" And everyone's kind of like, "I don't know," like, "Bye." So
Yeah, that's
I
true.
think the fact that he didn't say like, "Oh, by the way, he's dead," like you are now being cut out of existence, and that's the end. I think that kind of left it open for interpretation of like, if you want to do something with him later and you get a cool idea, like go for it. So which a lot of the creators seem to do, especially towards the end of their runs. They like to leave certain parts open ended, or uh, people can pick up pieces that have been forgotten about or not mentioned for a while. Like I had completely forgotten that John had demon blood.
Right.
It was just like so rarely mentioned anymore, and just assumed that it was like, oh right, of course he has the demon blood. Like that is a like such a big part of who he is, but you just don't think about it like at the forefront of that's who he is.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And they don't bring it up that much. Like Garth Ennis didn't really use that, except the only time he used it and it was a thing was when the King of the Vampires bit him. And then he's like, "Oh my god, demon blood!" And then he like
Right.
he
And then
uses
you're like,
that
oh right, he has demon blood. So it's just like one of those things where it is a big part of him, but you just kind of push it to the side, and it's just like, oh yeah, that's there, but we don't really talk about it until somebody else brings it up.
until he needs it to get out of a situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like this. The Jenkins run took a second for me to like accept some of these things, but then once I did and I was like on board with it, I was like, okay, like I see what he's doing. This is all planned. He's got ideas and I like them. Um, One other thing that's like connected is we finally get closure for Astra. Um, she is one of the children that Boar has.
Oh, that was so nice.
Yeah, yeah, and like I think um like John getting to say like, I think he says like forgive me or something and she's like it's fine, like
Well, he's
thank
just like,
you
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of that to happen. It's like, I swear, I was always gonna try and do something. I just didn't know how or when or like what I could do. So yeah, it was definitely sort of like asking for forgiveness and saying that he had always meant to save her. He just never knew how to do it. And yeah, I loved that. That was so nice. In such a weird, messed up storyline to have that little bit of like, aw.
Yeah, and not only does he free her soul, but he frees all the children that Boar had under his control. So all those souls get to go to heaven. So that's nice. John did that as well.
And he saved Cider.
And he saves Cider. So Cider, is cured. He's happy. His parents are happy. John figured it out. And now we have kind of like a new John, like he's demon blood free. He's all the bad stuff that was in his life, including, I'll say, like Kit. He doesn't remember, or he takes away all the like bad moments with her and puts it into this John as well. So it's kind of like he uses it selfishly for that too.
I don't know. I took it more as like he was giving his like sort of love and feelings for Kit to this John so that he wouldn't have that constant reminder of like how much he loves her. Like not necessarily the bad stuff, but just like the because he's like, this will get you through the fact that you're going to be tormented in hell for all eternity. I would think that it would be like a more pleasant, here's all your love for Kit that should sustain you, your memories of her, your feelings for her. I don't need them anymore. I can move on, but this will be something where you can be like, oh, you remember that time when we were like lying in bed making love like 50 times? You're like, yeah, you get to have that and you're not going to feel any pain. So yay, you lucky guy. Man, I
I
wish
was thinking of it like he's getting rid of it because he doesn't want to have to have it anymore.
well that too, but also I think he tried to at least spin it in a positive way for shitty John.
He spins it to his bad self or whatever.
Yeah, but also I would also like to think that it was sort of in a way, sort of like a balm for like, yeah, I'm giving you all my shit, but here's an actual like nice part of that shit.
Yeah, we've discussed this before, but John always is kind of he lies to himself to make it okay sometimes with things. So I don't know. I always felt like there could have been like, or there is like an underlying like, you're all the shit and you have to go live in hell now. Sorry. And like, it's okay because you won't feel anything because I made Aleister Crowley like merge with your soul and he's going to feel all the torment. And then, you'll remember Kit and then I conveniently won't have to remember, like, have those feelings anymore either. Like, I don't know. I feel like it works. If it's selfish for him in any way, it's not actually like a good thing. Like a selfless act or
I
whatever.
kind of saw it both ways. It's both selfish for him to move on and not have this burden of Kit, but it also is like, hey, you know what? If our roles were reversed, I would kind of want something like memories of Kit to keep me going. So, it could have been completely selfish, but he's good John now. So I feel like good John would also be like, it's bad, but it's also good for you to have
That's true. He is good, John. Now, yeah, you make a compelling argument. I guess that's true. Um,
that.
but yeah, I mean, I just like that. John is such a morally gray character that you don't know. It could be either way. It could be a mix of both. It probably is a mix of both. It's never clean with John. It's never just black or white. It's always messy. So
Which is great because then it's, we get to have these discussions and have different thoughts about, well, John could be this, John could be that. It's, I love that it's up in the air and it's kind of how you've experienced a reading character, how you've experienced, seeing what he's gone through, and then you take that and be like, okay, so from my understanding, this is the way I see things. Unless we ask him someday.
yeah,
Else.
for sure. Yeah, when I go talk to Paul Jenkins, as I always do,
Yeah.
I will ask him. Him and Ennis and Delano
Yeah.
when I meet him.
You got a lot of questions for these guys someday. You got to write them all down.
Yeah, I'm gonna be that nerd at the Comic Cons that's like, so in Star Trek 798, when the flux capacitor is blah blah blah, like, and they're just like, it's a fake thing. Go away. Like, I made it up. That's the answer. I was on a monthly deadline and I made it up. That's what happened.
John isn't real. You do know this, right?
Of course, I know John's not real. And he's like, John's real. Like, I knew it.
Exactly.
And then the only other really big thing that has lasting repercussions for this run is Ellie returns. We see at the very end, after John comes back from the whole like, I guess he's in the deal that he made to give his soul for the children. He gave them his bad soul, and the children were released, and the first of the fallen was resurrected in hell. Not as powerful as he was before, but he's still, pretty badass demon guy. And so,
And he's still pretty much on top. regardless.
Yeah, I mean, he might have to build up his reputation again because he got beat by John, but who hasn't, right? I mean, it seems like everybody and their mother gets beat by John in Hell. So, um, but we see Ellie like in his bathroom, like in the shower, as John is like washing his face after all this, and she's like, "Why did you do it?" Because now she's got to go in hiding because the First of the Fallen is back in Hell, and she can't be around because he's obviously pissed about her killing him or stabbing him with the dagger in the Garth Ennis run. So that leaves a little bit of foreshadowing to happen. Did you have any thoughts about that?
Well, it was a surprise. Like I didn't expect her at all. And then I was like, oh, of course she would be worried. Of course, as soon as he showed up again, she would be like, what the fuck? I thought we got rid of this guy. And yeah, of course she would go straight to John and be like, dude, I thought we had a deal. Like, you did like what did you why? Like I could see a million questions going through her head of like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Like I didn't know this was happening. You didn't even consult me. You didn't even come to me and say, like, hey, can you help me with this problem in a way that doesn't involve him coming back? Like you didn't even think to talk to her, which again is very John. Obviously, he wasn't thinking that far ahead. He was simply thinking, me in this moment need to fix it. Like, like she probably wasn't even on his radar. He was just like, oh right, you are affected by this too. Sorry about that. So I thought it was a great little like cherry on the top of like, you know, well, one, the first coming back, and then two, the first really coming back, like not just as immortal, but getting his powers back, and then her coming back as well was a great way to end it on that sort of cliffhanger of like, oh shit, what's going to happen next with her? Because now that she's back in here and the first is back in, there's so much more that could be said with their story.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to spoil anything, but it gets good between them. So I enjoy
Ooh,
their storyline going forward. So we'll have to see what happens in the next Hell Talk about that. We'll discuss that. But
nice.
yeah. So that is the end of the Critical Mass storyline. Any other thoughts about just that storyline in general?
I liked that no one really died. I mean, Alistair, of course, because he was sort of like, well, I mean, that was part of the plan was him to be like, to give up.
Yeah, but he's Aleister Crowley, so no one cares.
Yeah, but the fact that the kid was okay, the parents were okay, and nobody else really got hurt. And then, of course, Screwball, like he brought this on himself. But yeah, I thought it was a great way to sort of have this huge revelation that didn't involve, aside from John's sacrifice, anyone else's sacrifice that was close to him. He actually did save someone and reunite a family.
He saved many
So
people. He saved a bunch of kids' souls.
that's true. Yes, he also saved all those kids from who knows how many years they've been trapped in hell. So yeah, I thought it was a surprisingly positive ending, despite the fact that, obviously things are gonna get worse later on. But at that moment, it was very positive.
What do you mean? Surely John will continue this run of good luck and not have anything bad happen to him.
I mean, he's a new guy. He's good John now. What could possibly go wrong with that?
What could possibly go wrong? And indeed, I mean, I like how immediately after that we get issue 97, and it's a weird issue. I'll say that it is one of those like it's my least favorite kind of John Constantine issues where it's like we're gonna sit and someone's gonna reveal something about me, and it's just us talking for the entire issue. um, but yeah, that's what this is. It's like John, wants to go for a walk. He sees a light in the woods. He goes there. He finds a gypsy guy in the woods, who's like a card reader, and he gets his fortune told, and it kind of it tells through this like story about a fox, you know, what has happened to John so far, and then as John picks the different cards, there's the fox one, and there's like other ones, and then at the very end, it's like, ooh, is John gonna be the fox again? Because we see he doesn't look at it himself. He's like, I don't want to know my future, pal. I'll see you later. And then the guy flips the card over, and it's the fox. So it's like, oh, is John gonna? I mean, he just got rid of his evil self, and that's, I guess, technically the fox, right? And like, if the fox is in his future, does that mean he's gonna get corrupted again, or something's gonna happen? So What do you think about this issue in general?
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, it felt like sort of a clip show like they do on TV where, oh, here's little bits and pieces of other things while we move the story along, but at the same time we need to sort of like rehash some stuff. So it felt kind of like that where it was sort of like an in-between of like, hey, you remember all that stuff that's happened, but in a cute, fun animal story way. Um, yeah, so it felt like, yeah, just sort of an in-betweener, not the best story, cute. I mean, I love animal stories, so that part of it was adorable to have it told, like John's story told as like he is the wily fox and he has friends, but also he betrays them all the time, and then the dog comes. So it was cute. It was fun, sort of like bedtime story-ish sort of way to tell John's story. I would actually love a spin-off of of like a full animal story version of John's life, like of everything.
John
Would be
Constantine, Fox Hellblazer.
right. That would be so funny to have like a sort of almost like child friendly version of John's story with all these things.
Man, that'd be crazy.
It would be cute though. It would work if you did it right because he obviously found a way to do it without it being too much about demons and babies getting torn up and stuff like that. Um, like fables, but like toned down.
I'd be okay with it as long as the fox wears a trench coat and smokes. So if that's possible.
He can't smoke. He could like chew on a branch or something.
Well, that's no fun.
Even the trench coat would be a bit much unless you're going for like straight up anthropomorphic. But I liked the way it was told, like as actual animals. So that part of it was really cute. But other than that, it was like, okay.
Yeah, I think it was creative, but it was just like, um, I mean, they're just sitting there talking. So it's
Yeah, it's a meh story at best, but
yeah, I always find those hard for me to get excited about. It's an issue where they talk. I think it reminds me of not that this is the exact same, but there's that issue in Fear Machine where it's like letters between him and Marge, and I remember you being like, "It's just letters. The whole issue is just him talking to her through letters." Like
yeah,
it's like
that was
Dracula or something. It's like, oh my god,
why.
yeah. It's not quite that level, but that's kind of the feel I get from it. But yeah, and then we get another issue that introduces some more characters of John's friends, the wider cast, we'll say, because I like the way he introduces them in this like 10 issues, where he introduces the main family that John's going to be with that we're going to like, Rich and what's her name? Michelle, Rich and
I
Michelle,
forget her name.
and Cider.
Oh, good, you remembered.
Yeah, I remember. It's because he calls her Slark as well. Like that's his nickname for her. And I'm like, well, that's a shitty nickname. I don't know what it means, but it sounds terrible. It sounds like a slur or something. but uh but yeah, so they introduced that family, initially, and it's a really good way to do it, I think, where you're not overwhelmed by all these different characters at once, but you get like we're building these for like 6 issues, and then here's some more characters that we're going to have throughout the series as well. We get, Straff, the big like softy guy that's John's friend whose mom is epileptic, and then we get there's 2 weird friends that I never really liked throughout this whole run, and they just appear as needed. And one of them is called Moppet, and he's just a crazy biker guy. And there's a guy named Lefty, and they only mentioned his name like once in this issue, and then they never really say it ever again. And he appears in a couple different issues, like scattered. And I'm always like, what the fuck is the name of this guy? and I never know. So usually I'm like, and another friend, because I could never remember his name as I was going through it. But yeah, the this is like the introduction of that, and this is one of those like fun storylines. And I say fun in like quotation marks because it's not a happy story, but like it's like kind of like a classic, one issue. Like there's a problem, John figures it out and solves it, and it's done, kind of thing.
Monster of the week sort of thing.
Yeah, monster of the week. But I like the monster in this one. It's a different kind of monster. because it's like their house is being haunted by a dog, a dog spirit, and John figures it out. What did you think of this overall?
I thought it was so sweet and so sad.
It is
It's
sad.
like those comics where it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen the one where it's like a Garfield comic, but instead it was like Garfield died a long time ago and John just is pretending like Garfield's still there. It
Is that
had
the
that kind of
premise
a
for
feel
that?
to it.
It's called Garfield minus Garfield. I thought it was just the premise was take Garfield out of the comics. I didn't realize it was Garfield was a cat that died that he had, and now he just imagines what he would say.
Yeah, it's well, I think you can read it either way, where it's literally just as if John is always talking to himself. But I think it was suggested that it's also like he just died, and so John just imagines Garfield doing all this stuff,
That's way
you know?
more
So
fucked
it's like,
up than just if he's crazy John. If he's crazy John, it's funny. If he's depressed, sad John, imagining his cat, it's the saddest comic ever written.
yes. So, either way you want to take it, I think. I don't think there was a definite, like, specific waiver, but it reminded me that sort of feeling of like, the pet that has died, but in this case, it's not so much like the person is crazy, it's that the pet has almost been driven crazy by like wanting to be with their owner, but be also being afraid of them, but also like wanting to kill them for being left alone, but also really sad. And it was just like the whirling emotions that this dog had was so sad.
Yeah, I and I struggled like, what does this dog sound like? And I just went with like, I don't know what's going on. Like,
Yeah, and then the little that you do sometimes was like, oh, it was like break my heart every time you did that.
yeah, well, it was written, and I'm like, I guess I got to make it like a real dog cry or whatever. Like a, yeah. It was sad. I remember thinking like, oh man, this one's a hard hitter if you like dogs. Especially the nice thing is like the guy that killed him and beat him to death is gets revenge basically, or the dog gets revenge on him. So and ends up haunting him forever. But this story really is just a vehicle to get these extra friends in the in the scene in the run. Um, and speaking of them, what'd you think of these extra friends besides Rich and his family? There's this other little group. What do you think of them?
I have no strong feelings, really. I just thought they were kind of weird, and yeah, it's just a story's a vehicle to build up his group again because he's got to have more people around him to. I'm hoping not die, but just to be around to be his assistants and things. I mean, he goes through friends like he goes through cigarettes, so I'm sure that
That's a
not
lot.
everything will not everything will turn out good for all of them, but you know, as far as a vehicle to bring these friendships in, these new people into his life, I thought it was effective, but I really didn't have any strong feelings for these newer ones. I was like, ah, okay, rounding out the friend group again.
Yeah, I felt the same. I was like, yeah, okay, but like the dog storyline is like a nice little background to introduce them, kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
and then and in contrast, I mean, we haven't spent a lot of time with the friends in Jenkins Run, but like, do you have a preference for friend groups of John? Like, we have Delano's, travelers friends, and then we have, um, the friends that John had with Kit and extended people, Rick the Vic, and all that in Ennis's Run. Do you have a preference for them?
Oh, that's a tough one. As much as I shit on Fear Machine, I thought that the friend group that he had in that was one of the more solid ones, and I loved those characters a lot. So I think the contrast of that, of it being one of my least favorite stories, but also my favorite as far as the people around him are concerned. Um, yeah, I'd have to go with that.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I think that's cool, and I also like, I think Marge and her sister, wow, I'm blanking on her name right now, Marge and something else with an M,
No, it
can't remember.
started with an M.
Yeah.
Mercury,
Mercury, there you go.
was it?
Yeah, it was Mercury. With Marge and Mercury especially, I really like them as like his friend group, his main like core friend group. But I do like Rich, and
And
like
Zed. Zed was cool.
Zed is cool, but she kind of like disappears for a really long time and then comes back. So, um, that's a character I think could come back more often, but never or hasn't yet at least. So, I could see Zed like reappearing as like some. you know, uh, head priestess of a coven or some shit or whatever, you know, of like a
Yeah,
pagan
I
thing.
think there are definitely a lot of underutilized characters. I mean, I have a particular sour note for Papa Midnight being so incredibly underutilized and then killed off. So
Yeah, I know there's a mini series for Papa Midnight from like 2012 or something like that. So I might go through those miniseries once I'm done with, the main 300 issues.
oh, that could be cool.
4 years from now, we will get those. But
Yeah, that's for future Matt to worry about.
exactly, just like John, I deal with the present. um, but yeah, so that's cool. I like that. Like Delano's friend group really stuck with you. That's cool. Um, and then we get like I don't know if you thought this was going to happen. When I read issue 99, I thought that was going to be like, oh, and now here's two more people. But actually, it's just a fucked up story about some people he knew at one time that were kind of friends that he meets again, and then their hopes and dreams are horribly crushed because they go to Abaton and it's such a perfect world or whatever that they aren't scarred and horribly maimed from an accident when they were younger, and the boyfriend of that woman that was scarred is not a heroin addict anymore, and they get a taste of what it would be like to be happy, and then they're thrust back into our reality. What did you think of issue 99?
I thought that was sort of his way of saying that he wasn't going to do things the way other creators have done, and that everyone sort of puts their friend group together in the beginning, Ocean's 11 style of like, and this guy who's going to do this, and this character is going to do that, and builds up the group, and then as time goes on, they get picked off one by one. I thought this was an interesting way to do it differently, in that you're thinking, oh, everyone introduced right now is going to become part of the core group, and they'll go on together and get into shenanigans and deal with them then. But the way he kind of just offs them, almost George R. R. Martin style, is kind of like, whoa, okay. So like we thought these people were going to be important, but this shows that no one's really safe. And I also thought that it was a great like sort of tragic story. I do love tragedies because they're so poignant if they're done well. And I thought this one was done really well, both in showing that the friendships are tenuous. Obviously none of this would have happened if John hadn't taken them there. So again, it's another like, you fucked up, John. You ruined your friends' lives, and now they're dead. Which I don't know how good John feels about that when you thought things were getting so much better and different. So so I like that it's a different way of reintroducing friends, but also still a great tragic story that shows John, even when he's trying to do something good, as good John, things can still go bad. And it's not necessarily his fault, but it is kind of his fault.
Yeah, there was no malice in it, but it still ended up fucking up people's lives. So, um,
Yeah.
and one thing that surprised me about this issue, and we get to learn a bit more about, is the character Jack of the Green. Like, it starts off with this doll being tortured by him, and you're like, what the fuck? And then like later on, he like loses his temper and basically tries to kill the two friends that are with John, and like I don't know, like most of the plant entities that we find are very like peaceful and happy unless there's something attacking them directly or attacking the green. So what did you think about, were you surprised by Jack's temper and like powers that he has or that he uses on them?
Oh, absolutely. I thought he was kind of just like a whiny little bitch, where John's just like, blowing smoke in his face and he's just like, just, don't hurt me and all this stuff. But it turns out he's kind of a sadist. Like he's got some darkness. He's a kind of a fucked up guy. And, I don't know, if I were John, I'd kind of be a little worried about pushing him too far so that he snaps. Maybe don't like absolutely keep him under your thumb, but keep an eye on him too, because if you don't know what a character like that could do, if he has that ability to just sort of like switch from sort of a meek, like humble character, just straight up like monstrous, like I don't know, killer.
Yeah, it definitely puts you on your toes about him, right? Like you don't know what to think now when you see him in the future. You're like, wait, is he going to be like the meek, reluctant helper to John, or is he going to be this fucking like sadomasochistic crazy plant entity that like tortures dolls and tries to murder the friends of John. Like,
And is a bit racist too.
and is a bit racist, but okay, I will stand by that racism because it makes sense that he would say it in the context of him being like the spirit of England or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, no, okay. No, you're right. That's I mean, I was just surprised that it came out so easily and so quickly. But now that yes, context, it makes sense. But at the moment, I was just like, oh man, this guy's messed up.
Yeah, yeah. He says it because he's like, black people don't belong here because it's England. It's like the soul of England, and that's like a white people's domain. It'd be like, I think like an African guy would say the same thing to a white person that was like, I'm here now. And he's like, no, you're not. This is black people's land. Like, go away. Like, this is our land. Um, and so I think that's the intent. It does come off. I mean, John even says like, well, that was racist.
Yeah, yeah,
but it's supposed to come off like that. I mean, I think that's the context, is he's the spirit of England, or of Great Britain or whatever. And so, yeah.
totally get that. Still jarring and adds another layer to his character for sure. So, yeah, just he's just a mixed bag of I don't want to fuck around with that, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. You just don't know what's going to happen. And also that means that like,
Which is great.
yeah, it is great. And it means that he won't, like, you don't know how he's going to react to different situations because his whole motivation is like the furthering of, or the bettering of England, which could mean a lot of different things to different people, and you're not
Right. And
exactly
also
sure.
the protection of Abaton.
Yes.
And
Well, Abaton is
you
like
know,
the soul of England, so that's kind of what he means. Like, if this is the soul of England, you can't be here, and also like all I care about is the protection of that. In extension, what's happening in England, outside. So I like that. I think it makes him a way more threatening character, for future storylines.
complicated layers. I like that he's unpredictable, like you said. I like that he is not just what he was portrayed as originally. He's got more sides to him, and that makes it really intriguing to see how he'll be used later, or what he could or couldn't do. And that's cool because sometimes you kind of just figure, oh, this character's going to do that, and then you're right. So with this guy, you're kind of like, I have no idea what could happen the next time he shows up.
So we get that super depressing ending, and then we get a pretty fucked up issue 100. that
Oh man.
that also changes the status quo of John's previous, or things that have happened previously in John's life, specifically with his father.
Yeah, that was a heavy episode. I mean, issue.
It is, and like, the First of the Fallen, or the setup is the First of the Fallen is kind of, this is the first thing he's done since he's been back to John. John is in some kind of magical coma that the First of the Fallen has put him in, and he's like in some kind of hell dimension ish with the First of the Fallen, and the First has his father, has John's father in hell. He's torturing him, and at first John is like, "What are you doing to my dad?" And like, "You better let him go." And then the First is like, "Are you sure you want me to do that? Let me tell you all this horrible stuff that your father did that you didn't know about." Um, completely turning all the stuff that happened in the Family Man story arc and like the episode after where John feels bad, or the issue after where John feels bad about cursing his dad with the like formaldehyde cat, uh, that he had him keeping him alive for all those years. Um, and so, yeah, what'd you think about learning of John's dad being a creeper to his sister and making his mom get the abortion that killed her and the twin?
I loved this story because it pulled you in different directions almost on every page. There was a new sort of reveal. And so, on one second, you could be like, oh, like, John, you're a horrible person. How could you do this to your dad? You have to get him out of here right now. And then be like, oh my gosh, your dad did that? Like, oh, that's horrible. But then, just the pulling in different directions. It's like, at first, I can't believe my dad's here. I have to save him. And then, oh, but he's here because he did these horrible things. It's like, oh well, no, John, you put me here when you actually should have just left that cat alone. I could have been in limbo forever, and like now you, and I told you not to, like, destroy the cat, and then you wouldn't listen to me, so it's all your fault. And it's like, well, no, actually, he was going to be there anyway because of the horrible things he did, like creeping on the sister, like with the abortion. Yeah, so I thought it was a fantastic story, horrific story, but the fact that it could make you feel completely different, uh, switch sides almost immediately, just one line to the next. I love a story that can take you in different directions and almost give you whiplash with like, and then this, and then this. And yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this issue a lot. It is a fat issue. It's a double-sized issue, so I'm glad they gave it like the page count it needed to explain everything. And then of course it is uh like it just makes John, it lets him let go of any of the shit that happens with his dad. He doesn't have to think about that anymore because he's like, you were a shit person. Have fun in hell getting tortured uh the first of the fallen, and I don't have to feel guilty about any of that shit anymore. So it's kind of just once again cleaning up a little bit of the loose ends from Jamie Delano's like the emotional stuff that happened in that with his dad. Um so yeah, so that we're 100 issues in now officially. That is a third of this run.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm very very excited to be a third done. And on to the next, So
Yes.
we'll see. We'll at issue 200 we'll see how it's been then. Now I think when I first read Hellblazer, I jumped from I started at the Azzarello run, which is in the middle of the one, I think it's like 140 or 150 or something like that. So it that's where like the first issue or the first trade I picked up. And then I went back and read the Dangerous Habit stuff from Ennis, and then I went back and read the original Sin. So I kind of jumped all over the place at the beginning. And I just picked them up based on their writers. So I was like, I don't know who Jamie Delano is, but I know who Garth Ennis is, and I know who Brian Azzarello is. So I'm excited to get to some of that stuff that I have not read since, maybe for 20 years almost, which is like the Azzarello stuff. And then some of it I haven't read at all, like the Warren Ellis run. There's like a short, like 12 issue run there that he did. And so, yeah, I'm excited to get to that stuff. And then, of course, the Mike Carey run, which is what was going on when the movie came out. So I'm interested. I have not read that either. So a lot of this, like the 200 or 100s into the 200, I have not read at all. So I'm excited to get to that.
I'm so happy to be along for the ride on this because everything is new to me.
Yeah, and it's like it's really fun introducing you and other people to the character. And like, so what do you think of the 100 issues so far as like story? Like, because that's one thing that people um a criticism people have of like runs of characters, or like well, not even runs, but like full volumes. Where like volume 1 of Hellblazer's 300 issues, and you're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what's good. Um, we've read 100 issues of it. Would you recommend just starting at one every issue is worth reading kind of thing, or do you have any thoughts about the run so far, or the volume so far?
Well, my personal choice is always to read from the beginning because I like to see where a character starts and how it goes. But I do also think that if you're trying to get someone interested in it who might not feel that way, who isn't the sort of person who wants to start at the beginning, and it's just kind of like, you know what, intrigue me, give me your best story. And then if I like it, I might jump back to the beginning. Then, yeah, I would say probably starting with either, what was one? It was the one with the one that I always forget the names, and you just said it. Dangerous Habits is a great one to start with because that's kind of just like its connection to the movie. I think is what helps because most people have seen the movie but have never read the comic, so that bit of a connection there I think helps with the whole cancer thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But I also think the way you said it, like kind of the way you picked it out with well, I mean, I can't say because we haven't gotten there yet as far as Azarella's run, but Ennis's run being the favorite, I guess, by popularity. Sure, you can start there. But yeah, me personally, I just like to start at the beginning. But I do like the idea of tailoring someone's experience if they don't know where to start and just kind of want to jump in.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. And I mean, that's how I got into it. Like, I just was like, let me pick a writer that I heard, that I like, and the character, and it should be good to like go from there. But um specifically with like volumes like that are very big, it's like um some people ask like, well, do I need to read every issue? Like, how do you feel Hellblazer is as a story overall? Like, do you feel it's worth, like, it's a solid, like, pretty much all of this 100 issues has been like good? Or I mean, there's been ups and downs obviously, but generally the trend has been good in my opinion. But what do you think?
Oh, I totally agree. Like, even though I've said with my least favorite storyline or, run, um, I still wouldn't say don't read it at all because it's got great characters. It's got, it's an intriguing story. It's just not the way it's told to me is not the best. But, I would not say like there's any sort of like down moments, even in the like this most recent run with the issue where we will just like, it was an okay issue, but I wouldn't skip anything necessarily. I'm also a completionist, so I don't like to skip things just because someone's like, "Oh, that one's boring, don't read that." I'm like, "No, I'm gonna read that, and I will decide for myself." Both because I want to read everything and know everything about this character, but also I don't like it when someone is like, "This isn't worth your time." Like, only I should be able to decide what's worth my time, and if I wanna read the entirety of Hellblazer and own it someday, I will someday. Probably not issue wise. Maybe trades, maybe absolute something. I would love to have the actual run of Hellblazer because if nothing else, I love this character and I love the arcs that he's gone on. I love the stories that he's been in and the side characters that have come up from it. And everything about it I just find so thrilling about his journey. So, no, I wouldn't say that even in his first 100 issues that there's anything that I would consider not worth reading, even during its slow moments, even during its like, what is this even about? Moments, or even if you were to pick issues out that you're like, these aren't relevant to the main story. Like, sure, yeah, other people can do that. I personally would rather have everything in there and would recommend to others that you just, you go through it, you see the whole journey and appreciate everything for what has been made.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you're on board with it as much as I am. I like going through all these. I was worried, especially with like Swamp Thing and this series. I'm like, what happens when I get to a run or a part of a volume that isn't good? And it's like, okay, I mean, I can make myself read it, but like our listeners going to want to listen to that. And luckily, I won't say that didn't happen in Swamp Thing. There was a couple runs in that volume, in some of those volumes that I'm like, well, I guess hopefully they like me kind of laughing about this because it is ridiculous or whatever. But um, Hellblazer, I feel like has been like, even if I didn't like certain issues, it's been pretty solid. And it's been nice now that we're at like issue 100 to look back and be like, yeah, that was like a pretty unbroken run of great comics, which isn't something that most runs can say, or most volumes of comics can say. Um, I mean, even nowadays, most volumes last like 12 to 18 issues. So to have 100
Right.
issues be good is like crazy. Um, and
Yeah, there's nothing that really stands out in my mind as like, "Oh, that one was bad." I can't honestly, I'm racking my brain to think of anything that I was like, you know what? That one was not that good." I have nothing that I really think fits the category of, "This is all like a shining star," and except for that one. So it's more of like there's ups and downs. There's some that are, maybe a little on the like boring side where nothing really happens, but there's still a story there. Uh, and then of course you got the stuff that's just like, oh, this was the most amazing thing I've ever read. So yeah, I would say nothing really drops below a 3 if I'm rating on a scale of 1 to 5. Like, most everything's in the 4 and 5s, and then there's a few that are like, "It's a 3," it's solid, but it's like, "Yeah, it's okay," compared to the other stuff. So, nothing really stands out as, like, the worst or not worth it or why was this even included in why was this even an issue, So Yeah, I think it's solid.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up. Did you have anything you wanted to hit or thoughts that I missed?
I would like to know, as I always ask, do you have a favorite cover from this run?
So I like my favorite cover, like the one that's most striking that I would always go back to, is the first issue of the Critical Mass run, which is issue 92, with the child looking out all creepily with the yellow eyes and Boer behind him with yellow
Oh,
eyes.
that is
It's a
such a creepy
creepy,
cover.
creepy cover.
So striking. And I'm not a fan of children. I have no children and I don't really like children. So to me, it's even more creepy of just like this child is like the epitome of everything I don't like about children. Just the look of it is makes
Yeah.
me want to both read it to find out why this child is so creepy and also so off-putting and creepy that the ick feeling is very high with that cover. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be one to get for your wall for sure. That painting.
No, I wouldn't get that for my wall, but
I
I do
would.
appreciate it for its striking image.
I'd get the big giant painting of it from Sean Phillips if I could.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Well, what about you? Did you have a favorite cover?
That one's my second favorite, just for, like I said, the ick factor that it has. But my favorite is probably the issue where they return to Abaton and there's the doll on the cover and John sort of in the silhouette behind. I love the painting, the colors, the way they did that with like the light sort of splashing over her and just a smidge over him. And it's such a similar color scheme to what they did with the creepy kid one. But I don't know. I just love the flow of that one. It's very beautiful
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so
She
sad.
she looks so sad, like strung up on the tree and everything. It's very creepy. Yeah, but there's this one had like pretty damn good covers. I like a lot of them. If I saw them on the stands, I'd be like, "What the hell is that?" Like, that's interesting.
Yeah, they had a very good selection as far as the images that they chose for the stories this time, and um, yeah, I don't think any of them are weak necessarily, but the ones that stood out to me the most were definitely the two we mentioned.
Cool. Well, I think for the next time, for the next Hell Talk, we're gonna go through issues 101 to 109. So a good 9 issues, and
Yeah, breaking into the hundreds now. Woo.
yeah, it's exciting. And then, like, I think the Jenkins run only goes to issue 120. What is it? 128. So, we're like around halfway into it. Um, and yeah, with the next one, we'll definitely be into the halfway point. So it'll be fun to go through those.
Nice. He's certainly setting himself up to be like making his mark just with this sort of like an introduction. So
Yeah.
he's already taken us around the world and now we've gone back to England. He's introducing like new lands and new characters and an all new John. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to see where he takes this.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into these issues because I know there's an Ellie storyline that I really think is fun.
Ooh, I
And
mean I
yeah,
do like Ellie.
yeah. So I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a good one. So definitely check out that when it comes out. And yeah, I mean, I never really say this, but if you guys are interested in the Patreon, where you get 40 issues ahead of where we're at in this run, definitely go check that out at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word, and you can get 40 issues ahead of what we're talking about right now. So definitely check that out if you're interested. And with that, I think we'll see you guys on the next one.
See you later.
Bye.